Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Sell More Book Show, episode 534. I'm Brian Cohen from Best Page Forward, joined by Michelle Pennington from The Writing Gals, who is also a sweet romance author. Michelle, how are you doing on this fine day?
I'm doing great. I get to take off on a little couples retreat with my husband as soon as we're done here.
Yes,
So
that's
go have
amazing.
yes, gonna enjoy some romance of my own for a little while.
Yeah,
With
come
no
up with some book ideas.
Oh yeah. My husband always gets asked at work if he's the inspiration for my
Ooh, I
story.
like that. I like that. I'm sure he loves that.
Oh yeah, he loves it so much. He's like, just don't go read it. No.
Yeah, exactly. We talked a lot about, some romance adjacent kind of things. We talked about writing gals. Why did you guys decide to do a cruise?
Okay. So it's purely because Victorine is cruise crazy.
Oh, I love it.
But so we wanted to do a writing conference, an in-person writing conference back in 2019. We had
Mm-hmm.
been planning it all through 2018, and then COVID struck, and we had to cancel the in-person conference and
Mm-hmm.
went to virtual. And we just found that virtual works really, really well for us, but we still wanted some kind of in-person connection.
Right.
And so we thought a cruise would be a fun way to do it. And so we are actually the writing gals, just us. So me, Victorine, and then our assistant Christine are going on a cruise next week, like on Sunday. Um,
Amazing.
and so it's going to be like a planning and prep cruise for the big one we're doing as a group in January. And mostly we're doing it because I've never been on one. And I said,
Amazing.
I don't want to be a complete newbie on a cruise that we're running as a writing conference kind of thing. And so that's what we're doing. And it's just fun because it's part vacation, it's part writing retreat, throw on some classes, some networking, all that fun stuff. And you have all the, fun stuff on a ship at the same time. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
that's why.
awesome. Well, definitely, y'all. If you're cruise crazy like Victorine, I'll ask her more about that next week, I guess. Go check out the Writing Gals. It's all at is it writinggals.com or
TheWritingGals.com.
thewritinggals.com. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
awesome, awesome. Well, let's get into the show. Nobody answered the previous week's question, so nobody's working on any mindset stuff. It seems like because that was the question. But you should consider working on some mindset stuff because here's what I've learned personally, and I'll get your thoughts on this too, Michelle. When I am not working on anything mindset wise, I'm not working on my mood, I'm not working on any like deeper mental things, I'll be okay for a little while based on the work that I had done to that point. But then the wheels will start to come apart and I'll realize, whoops, I need to go back to this. I need to refill the well. I need to work on the mindset. I need to do the affirmations or the listen to meditations or something. And so it's come to the point that I've just realized I must always do this or I will not be happy, not be healthy within a month or two. What are your thoughts on this, Michelle?
I think you're exactly right. We just have to get in the habit of making small corrections so we don't have to make big corrections.
Oh,
So,
yes.
it's like if we get too far off course, it's really hard to come back again. And so when you know
Mm-hmm.
something works, you got to keep applying it. I'm currently going through physical therapy
Mm-hmm.
and upper cervical chiropractic care for
Yeah.
my back. I know this is like if we're like athletes, this is like what we have to take care of if we're going to maintain our career, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so it's the same thing my doctor is telling me. Is like, it's a good thing we're taking care of this now because we can still correct it. If you waited until you were older and had more arthritis starting and all this sort of stuff, I wouldn't be able to get you as good of progress, right?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with mindset. If we let ourselves go too too long without making those small corrections and keeping our head on straight and keeping ourselves in alignment with our values and what makes us happy and our positivity and creativity, then we're going to get so far of course that we will, really start falling apart as
Yeah.
athletes, as writing athletes.
Yeah, I like, when you were talking, it made me think an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
That's for sure. And it's not nearly as painful either.
Yeah, oh my goodness.
As
Yes,
a
true.
burnout recoverer,
Same
I
here.
would not go through that again for $1,000,000. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's the worst. And it's so hard to come back from. And sometimes it breaks parts of you that you'll never get back again. And I wish I was wiser a few years ago and prevented it in the first place.
You'll be stronger for it eventually. You'll
I
be
hope
stronger
so.
for
I
it
mean, I find a
eventually.
lot of things that I gained from it.
Yeah.
And definitely the focus on my health and my creativity or mindset is definitely a big part of it. It just makes
Totally
you
makes sense.
aware of it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing. Let's get into the top story of the week. Love on the Ice. One of the most popular subgenres of romance books might surprise people who aren't avid romance readers. That subgenre is hockey. And it's been popular for a while, although it only captured mainstream attention when a video of a popular NHL player was used by TikTokers to promote a book, and he and his wife called on readers to stop sexually harassing him. Quote, "It's unfortunate that this episode is what introduced so many people to the subgenre, a long-standing favorite of the romance community," writes Rachel Kurzius of the Washington Post. Romances that feature athletes tend to be popular, and within the subcategory of sports romance, hockey dominates. In fact, at the time of the Washington Post article was published, all 10 of the top sports romances on Amazon were hockey romances. Quote, "Romance in general can be so thrilling, and hockey as a sport ups the ante in so many ways," says Scott Simon on NPR's Weekend Edition podcast. "There are a lot of moments of drama. We're talking about attractive athletes who make a lot of money at the pinnacle of success," end quote. Hockey romance appeals to those who like the quote contrast between the brutality of the sport and the softness that the romance brings out in the player, end quote. Romances are about fantasy, often in places you least expect to find it. To learn more about hockey romance and whether you might want to write something to get to Amazon's top 10, I don't know. Listen to the NPR podcast or read Kurzius's article in the Washington Post. Both are linked in the show notes. So, Michelle, why hockey romance? I imagine you've seen this a little bit too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. So when we're talking about different categories, there's always like the difference in steam levels too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you
Mm-hmm.
can have billionaire, for example, performing really well in steamy, and it may or may not be performing the same in sweet. But hockey
Right.
is all over sweet romance and steamy romance right now.
Mm.
It's performing well in every steam level. What's funny, speaking of physical therapy, I was at physical therapy, and of course we were talking about my career, and that's related. And he was like, "So what's big in romance right now?" And I said, "Hockey." And he goes, "What?" Like he was like, "What in the world? Hockey? Why hockey?" And so we were
Mm-hmm.
just kind of talking about it. And it's funny because it's not like the readers are hockey fans, you
No.
know.
No.
That's not why they're there. And it's exactly kind of what it's talking about. It presents so many of romance fantasy preferences in something that's fresh. So romance is all about the big, tough, powerful, capable protagonist.
Yep.
Usually tough on the outside and then really like teddy bear tender for the love interest at some
Yeah.
point, right? It's also really popular because if you look at the series that do really well, it's
Mm-hmm.
always, okay, how do we connect the books in the series? And it's like a family of siblings or the small town, and you go and meet everybody in the small
So
town.
this can be the hockey team.
Yeah, so it's like go through the
Ah.
series and build a whole series around a whole team and then hit all the favorite tropes, one player at a time. And so I think that's one of the reasons that team sports do really well. And sometimes it's been football. I heard people saying maybe golf is next, and I don't think golf will play well. And it's not just
because
because
they're not the big strong dudes.
I mean, there is Tiger Woods, which
Yeah.
like, big name, super big celebrity, very rich, but it's not the same brute force. It's not going to have the same appeal as like a bully romance, a mafia boss romance, an alpha. You know, there's a certain character type that people are looking for. Rugby could be just as rough and tumble as hockey, but there's not as much celebrity attached to it, I don't think.
Yeah, that makes
And so
sense.
the celebrity thing of a really like commercially successful sport does play a role there too.
So no pickleball romance is coming?
Pickleball's big. I don't think the romance will be, but somebody can prove me wrong. I don't know.
So, let's go into the hot potatoes of wisdom. This doesn't have to relate to sports, but do you think there are any other subgenres of romance that have not yet exploded in popularity that might be coming? Like, what do you think? Your opinion. This doesn't even have to be like trends currently.
Okay, so I think that low angst romances are on the rise. So not as big of a, dark moment. So a little bit less conflict at the end of the book. People are starting to really enjoy low angst. And funny enough, to completely break down all of like the romance, like what's the word I'm looking for? Not category, but like structures, like all the things readers expect for it to have, like the happily ever after and no cliffhanger thing. They're in the Clean and Wholesome bestsellers list. You're starting to see these cliffhanger shorts that are leading on, and it's like episodic fiction.
It's more like a will they or won't they, like a TV series where they don't quite get together at the end of the episode.
And anytime something starts performing really well on the bestsellers list, people are going to start copying it or trying to reproduce it. And I think it's interesting because Kindle Vella is going through some real struggles right now. So I don't think it's because people don't want episodic fiction. I think it's just how they're finding it. And so anyways, but if you look at the top of romance right now, like the overall romance genre bestsellers, you know what I'm seeing over and over and over again? I am seeing fake relationships and single parents, and I'm seeing second chance. Like those three tropes are outperforming everything else right now, and I keep seeing that mentioned as trends. So you can take, I think, just about anything and connect those tropes to it and probably do really well.
Nice. Oh, I love the insider insight there. Thank you. You got a question for me?
Yes. So speaking of, what can non-hockey romance authors learn from the popularity of the hockey romance?
So I think, even non-hockey romance authors can deconstruct any story. Something that when I was speaking with you guys and Inez Johnson and Lee Savino at the panel for the Writing Gals Conference, Inez talked about, I might see some subgenre that I see doing well, and I don't really want to write in that. But can I take, like, what is the base part of that? Like, why do people like this story? And can I make that why part of my story? Like, instead of like, a hurt hockey player, it's like a wounded warrior kind of thing, which she's written before. And thinking about, like, I've talked about this before, how part of being an author is like being an English major all over again in college, writing the paper, doing the research, figuring out how do these things connect or how do these things work from a thematic level. And if you can go and look at a story and deconstruct it, just like you might have had to do for a term paper way back when, you can use that to write your outline and to write your story.
Absolutely. And you can really hone in on that by, like you said, deconstructing it, but like looking at it from a trope level, like I mentioned
Mm.
before, you know, and the tropes are ubiquitous across all these trends and all these categories and all those sort of things. And so you just find a way to make it work. Like I could totally see a series. So I'll preface this by saying I've seen readers starting to say that they get tired of like a series where each book is a different trope,
Mm-hmm.
right? So like you write about the hockey team and each one has a different trope. So you could also capitalize on the same thing by doing one trope and doing different sports for every single one of them, you know?
Hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just like how can maybe I would get so bored writing a whole series of hockey romances. I could probably do one and totally enjoy it, but
Yeah.
I would want to try something else the next time. So find a trope that your readers really, really like, and can so do a whole series of say second chance single dad sports
Yep.
romances,
I
and
love it.
yeah.
Yeah. Great. Even if you're not a romance author, any of these trope ideas can be made into any of the genres in bookdom. So definitely pay attention here. Michelle, we need another lightning sound here. What do you got for me?
Oh my gosh, I was so bad at this last time. Um, I don't know how to do it.
Ooh, I
There we go.
like that. It was like a little longer than last time. Like it's really echoing amongst the trees. That's how it is by me. There's lots of trees, so it echoes for miles and miles. So, Michelle, first lightning round question. If an author wanted to write a certain subgenre of romance they weren't familiar with, how would they get started?
I mean, the obvious question is you have to do a deep dive into it and read
Yeah.
so what you're doing. I would check out the K-Lytics reports because
Mm-hmm.
they help
Mm-hmm.
you do that deep dive and really, aggregate all the data. But my trick that I love to do is to read reviews
Mm.
for the best performing books. Because that's going to tell you what readers loved about that book and what they did not like about that book. And so you can use the same to figure out, okay, I'm going to really hone in on why this particular thing is popular with its readers and try to avoid some of the pitfalls that you could get into if you weren't aware of them. So read the reviews. And even if you're trying to go through like quickly, like through the charts and just look at them all, Amazon helps us by putting all the little like keywords where they're pulling
Yes.
data from the reviews and see what they're showing over and over again as keywords for the reviews, because that can also help you see what tropes are very popular in that category. So,
Love that. Great advice. Thank you for the tip. Um, Question number 2. I'm ready.
okay, how important is the success of a debut book for a self-published author?
So I forget where I've seen it, but quantity leads to quality. And so when you put out a debut book, think of it as like, okay, well, this is like the first time I ever drew a picture. The
Mm-hmm.
first time you ever drew a picture, was it amazing? No, you were 2 and it was just squiggles. And you got to think of it as, each time you go out there, it gets a little less squiggly. And so I would say the success of a debut novel is 0.0001% of most authors' careers. Just keep going out there, keep squiggling, keep writing.
Couldn't agree more. um, so how does an author's oh, are you ready?
I'm going to ask you
You're
this
asking me
question.
a question.
Get
Okay.
ready. I'm
I'm
ready.
ready. Clearly trying
No,
to jump in here.
it's hard. It's hard. So, how do you think an author's marketing strategy might change for future books depending on how the first book goes?
Okay, so if the first book doesn't go well,
Mm-hmm.
learn to break up with it and walk away. Um,
Mm.
if you keep pushing and pushing and driving and chasing it with all of your time and energy and money, then you're not giving yourself the avenue to find success with the next book, right? And so I just say break up with that book and walk away. If it is successful, it's kind of tricky. Um,
Yeah.
because like J.K. Rowling, I heard her in an interview say she would never wish instant success on an author. She thinks it's one of the worst things that can happen to you creatively, because then you're kind of locked in to that thing, and there's so much pressure to repeat and to perform at that same level, and it's like lightning striking to turn the lightning around. Like you can't always make it happen. So what do? You have to analyze your success, and you have to say, okay, I'm going to deconstruct this and see if I can figure out why this book did well, so that I can recreate it, so that I can make lightning strike twice. And so if you think, hey, it's just because I'm an amazing author, and the first book I wrote just proves that I'm a genius, then you're probably going to miss out on the fact that it was something to do with the timing. It was something to do with the trend. It was something to do with, maybe Bridgerton is really, doing well. And so you happen to put out a Regency romance that hit at the exact right time. Some things, you might miss if you're not really analyzing it beyond just what you did. So
I love that. So, Michelle, other than a books, or no, you're asking me this. Now I'm in. Your turn. I'm gonna quiet down.
Okay. Other than a bookstore, where do you tend to buy your books?
So I do a lot of audio, so I'm always on my Audible app. I will look a lot online, but I do enjoy, especially at a conference, when I see something kind of interesting. I enjoy picking something up. I enjoy getting things at a gift store. Like I was at Writing Superstars in February in Colorado Springs, and there was this great local bookstore, and I loved looking for, well, what was the what was something very Colorado-y that I could get at that Colorado store. And so I would look for books there. One of my favorite things I was at a conference in Seattle. And I was at a gift shop at the Space Needle. And there was this great little book called Weedle on the Needle. And it was this giant, like fluffy, like mascot type creature that lived at the top of the Space Needle. And there was this book about it. And it had the little doll with it, which I thought was brilliant marketing. So I got the doll, I got the book, and got it for my daughter. And a year later, when we all went to Seattle together, she made sure to bring Weedle to the Needle. So it made a big impression.
You want to know one of my favorite places to buy books?
Sure.
Thrift stores.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, used bookstores are really cool, but when I was a little girl, we would go to thrift stores and I would buy Harlequin novels from, like, the 60s and 70s by the bag full, because they would be, like, 10 cents each.
That's amazing.
Even today, even though those are like really old fashioned, I think you would even consider them historical now. I think anything that's older than 50 years is like historical, even though it's not historical, they're old. But man, they had the tropes back then.
Oh yeah.
Like there was no missing the tropes in those old Harlequin novels. And so, you know what? Go into Harlequin again, like the old-fashioned ones. Go grab them at your thrift store. And you can also get a lot of like early copies of some of your favorite books there too.
I just got a book from a thrift store too, so I didn't even think of that. That was great that you brought that up. It was not a Harlequin romance novel, but I do like a good romance. So, Michelle, last question of the writing not the writing round, the lightning round. The Writing Gals group does classes, conferences, and even cruises. What's next for the Writing Gals?
Okay, so you mentioned classes, but specifically our academy is the up and coming thing that we're doing. So we are trying to build a library of content for authors to come into at any point. So maybe we're not currently having a conference or a cruise going on, but at any point in the year, they can come and subscribe. It's a subscription model. So they can pay, I think it's like $9.99 or $9.95 a month. and have access to our entire library of classes. And so that is what we are really, really working on right now. It's a treasure trove of past conference classes, not just by us, but by a lot of authors that have taught for our conference before. Our classes, I think we're getting up to like over 100 classes in the library right now that you would have immediate access to.
Nice.
And we're just going to keep building that and creating more classes for it, specifically for the Academy. And our vision is to just be like the go-to place, especially for new authors, to have a low-cost entry to their personal education.
I love it.
And someday soon, I
Yeah.
want an app for the Academy.
Ooh.
So that is like one of the things that I'm really hoping we are able to pull off soon, so that we can have our own app that will have a lot more available for authors, besides just the classes where they can like track their writing goals, or they can get motivation quotes, and they can be able to have like timers for sprints and like all those things built into one app where they can also access our classes. So yeah, that's my goal for the future, and I think I've pretty much got Victorine and Christine convinced. It's just a matter of when we like try to get started on that. So fingers crossed for the writing gals, everybody.
I love it. You can do it, and I love how we're going to have Victorine here for the next 2 weeks after you, so it'll be very writing galsy. But no, that sounds like a lot of fun. Awesome. Yeah. Well, congrats to all that you guys have done. It's fantastic.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. We need a question of the week. So this could be, usually I defer to the guests, but you know, it would be kind of fun because I always see people doing this.
Okay.
If you could make up a subgenre that was suddenly going to become popular, what would it be?
Oh, that could get crazy.
I know. Maybe people actually answer it. If you could come up with any genre to make popular, what would it be? Awesome. So you can answer the question of the week over at Sell More Book Show After Party or the Sell More Book Show website. So, Michelle, where should people go to find out about the Writing Gals and you?
So you can go to thewritinggals.com and find out all about our cruise, our academy, and our conference that is now open for registration. And as soon as you register, you can get access to the panel How to Sell Books in a Downturned Economy with Brian Cohen and Inez Johnson and Lisa Vino. Instant access to that. And then you can find me at michelle-pennington.com. And I'm just on Amazon right now. So not wide. You don't have to look very far to find me if you want to check out my writing. So
awesome. Thank you, Michelle. It was a blast having you on.
It's been a brilliant afternoon. Thank you, Brian.
Yeah, of course. I can't wait to hear about how your couple's retreat went. It's going to be great.
I'm not planning to publish all the details of that.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I just mean like a thumbs up or a thumbs down.
There we go. I'm sure it'll be a blast.
Yeah, awesome. But we'll have Victorine from the Writing Gals on next week, so expect more romance fun, more Writing Gals fun. I'm excited for some of the upcoming guests we have. I'll spill the beans as we get closer to that. But for Michelle, I'm Brian. Have a great week of book selling, everybody. And we'll talk to you soon for episode 535. Bye.